So the Jesuits, as I was saying, are a religious order, which is a group of priests who take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and live in community. And our superiors will be superiors within the order.
Okay, but don't priests in the Catholic Church always live celibate?
Diocesan priests who are attached to a diocese,
Yes.
they would take a promise of celibacy. Yeah, but I mean, they would live, with slender means, I think, but very much so. But they don't take a vow of poverty.
Oh, okay.
And they do take a vow of obedience to the local bishop, but they don't live in community. So they live in a presbytery or a rectory, sometimes called, which is where they would live usually on their own these days because there aren't enough priests to go around running parishes.
Is that the case?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah. We are a religious order, so we have different work. So we're not sent to a parish usually, unless it's if it's a parish like this, it's a church which is run by the order. But we do a lot of work in education, so run a lot of schools, universities over in the United States and the Far East. We have retreat houses where we give, along with lay people as well, especially now, and with sisters, we would give what's called the spiritual exercises, which is our founder, St. Ignatius of Loyola, wrote this long book inviting you to find God in all things.
I'm guessing like silent retreat?
Yeah, with a guide as well, an individual guide, whom you would talk to every day. You'd be prescribed some time of prayer, and then you talk about how you were moved during that time of prayer, which you could be doing in a church or a chapel, or you could be doing on a long walk, you could be doing anywhere. And
are the Jesuits an evangelical movement?
So we were founded in the 16th century. The religious orders in the Catholic Church, in the Church, go right back to the early centuries of Christianity. So the monastic life, monks, the order of St. Benedict, they go right back to then. And then in the Middle Ages, you had friars who lived in community but who were moving around different places. And so the Dominicans, the Franciscans were part of that. They were friars. So ourselves...
ChatGPT, can you draw me an image illustrating the difference between a member of the Benedictine, Franciscan and Jesuit orders, please? Well, it might even be accurate, but surely no one's going to be completely happy about it being the Franciscans being the only ones with a halo.
So ourselves, we were founded at the time of the Reformation, and we were founded to be a different kind of order. So although we live in community, we're not bound by praying at particular times together. So whereas the monks and the friars would be going to morning prayer together, evening prayer together, maybe lots of prayer during the day together, Mass together in community, sometimes and if you go to a monastery, there'll be prayers also at meals, and there'll be reading at meals or listening to music.
So there's in those communities, there's a regularity and prescribed way of behaving.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of covering nearly every moment of your... Okay.
Yeah. So Jesuits are priests and also brothers who are part of the order. We live in community. We do different kind of work. Education is a big thing. The focus of working alongside the poor. Spirituality is a big thing, but we don't have those prescribed times. How we live community changes and is flexible and geared towards the mission that we have.
So the word mission, if you work for corporate, they have a mission, okay, and that will mean a 15 words or less sentence that says this is what we do.
Yeah.
So do you have 15 words or less?
We don't really.
Okay.
No.
Not a single sentence, not a nice pithy.
We can't really. Well, if there is one, it will be forming men and women for others.
So are there women in the Jesuit order?
No, there aren't. For some people, there's a question around that. Well, because other religious orders have sisters. They're part of the order, like the Dominicans, the Franciscans. there'd be sisters as well. We don't have that, but we have plenty of associates of what we do here, the London Jesuit Centre, it's called. There are lots of women who are working there as well.
So how do you feed into the organisation, so like the wider organisation of the church, like bishops and cardinals and so on?
So as we're a parish here, so we relate to the archdiocese as well. So we're very much involved in that. As I have a diocesan role as well as Chair of Justice and Peace, and we relate to the cardinal and to the bishops and to the structure of the diocese, because we're mandated here to run a parish, which is a Jesuit parish, but we're a parish of the archdiocese, so that's very important.
So, apologies for my kind of gruesome questions.
Not at all.
What is there within the Jesuit order? So you've got a route.
Yeah.
To an organisational route to the Pope.
Well, he is a Jesuit. Yes.
Okay. Is he a Jesuit because he happens to be a Jesuit, or does he have to be a Jesuit?
No, he doesn't have to be.
He happens to be a Jesuit.
And when a Jesuit was elected Pope back in 2013, there were loads of people who were really surprised because it's never happened before. So Pope Francis was...
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Pope Francis is a Jesuit priest.
Yes.
So, he was the provincial superior in Argentina.
Yes.
Before he became a bishop. So he's probably now the best known Jesuit in the world, certainly within the church. And what I've just been talking about the finding God in all things, our spirituality, forming women and men for others, and the option for the poor is something which very much Pope Francis believes in. And his whole way also of leadership is very much like a Jesuit superior in many ways, people say. So there's Pope Francis is probably a very good model to look at for what a Jesuit is.
Okay. So the next question I'm going to ask with a bit of nervousness, so by all means push back. But have you seen the film The Two Popes?
I have.
What did you think?
What did I think of The Two Popes?
Well, it seemed to me to have a very sympathetic view of the current Pope.
Yeah. I think it was more like Francis than it was like Benedict.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Yeah, I don't know if anyone shares that. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't surprise me you say that. That's kind of what
Pope
I'd
Benedict
expect.
was an incredible Pope, and there's a continuity between Benedict and Francis that this is where the Holy Spirit comes into the church, doesn't it? I mean, that the Holy Spirit, I believe anyway, sends the right person at the right time. And Benedict was an incredible Pope, the greatest theologian Pope of recent times, with a real ecumenical feel as well, a feel for the dialogue with other churches. There was a massive breadth, actually. He was the most travelled Pope in history. We often think, when I say that, people say, it wasn't John Paul II. Of course, John Paul II was wonderful. I'm from his generation, and, he's a wonderful saint for us. But Benedict travelled the world long before the age of 78. He became Pope. He knew Latin America, he knew Africa, obviously he knew Europe very well. Yeah. And he was a wonderful writer, he had this relationship with other churches as well. He was the right Pope for the right time. Pope Francis is developing that in different ways, and the church evolves on its apostolic foundations.
Okay. So we were looking at this.
This is the Sacred Heart Shrine. So this is a devotion of the Catholic Church, which portrays Jesus with a heart burning in love for humanity. It gets to the core of what we believe about Jesus' mercy, about Jesus' infinite love for everyone. He's showing Mary and Joseph obviously on his left. Yeah. And then we have St. Ignatius of Loyola on the left-hand panel there, who is standing, the founder of the Jesuits in the 16th century. Kneeling is St. Margaret Mary. Now, Margaret Mary was a 17th century nun who had the visions of the Sacred Heart. Her spiritual guide was the man kneeling on the left, and his name is Saint now, Claude La Colombière. So Claude was a French Jesuit in the 17th century who was in Parle-Monial in Burgundy, was the spiritual guide to Margaret Mary and promoted devotion to the Sacred Heart. But he has a link also with London and so with Farm Street. So we've said a bit about the church being founded at this time and the Catholic emancipation, the late 18th, early 19th century, and this amazing Gothic church going up. But our history goes a bit further back because Claude was here in London at St James's Palace and other royal palaces in the 17th century. So at the time, during the reign of Charles II, so before the restoration of the Catholic monarchy by when James II came to the throne, and there was still a huge amount of persecution of Catholics. There were 6 Jesuits just in 1679 who were executed at Tyburn, and only recently, just in the last few years, we have a plaque now which marks where they're buried in St Giles in the Fields in Holborn. But there are 6 Jesuits there and St Oliver Plunkett as well, Archbishop Oliver Plunkett. So it was a time of great danger still for Catholics. Claude was brought in because he was known as a person who was able to be diplomatic and had all of those skills. And as a French Jesuit, he wouldn't have, I suppose, quite the same, be put under quite the same suspicion as the English Jesuits.
You're allowed to be Catholic if you're French.
Yeah. And the gunpowder plot, the Jesuits were meant to have been involved in that. They weren't actually. At the beginning of the 17th century, when Guy Fawkes and blowing up the Houses of Parliament, I think most of your listeners will have heard of Bonfire Night, and, the gunpowder plot. Well, the Jesuits were meant to have been involved in that and know about it. It may have been that something was said under the seal of confession. We don't know, but it was largely hysteria against Catholics, and not surprising in some ways when you've got 17th century terrorists trying to blow up the House of Parliament. But there was a huge persecution of Catholics at the time, and Claude was brought in to be the chaplain to Mary of Modena, who was the Duchess of York, the wife of the Duke of York at the time, that is James II. He was to become James II of England, 7th of Scotland. And he did a huge amount to bring Catholics more into the appreciation of their presence and tolerance for those who follow the Catholic faith by his links there with the establishment. Eventually, he was also implicated in a put-up plot, the Titus Oates plot, which the 6 Jesuits got hung for.
I hadn't heard of Titus Oates, but he's a horrific, fascinating man who, it seemed, could scarcely make a single utterance of any kind without lies falling from his face. He lied about getting a degree to get a job, then he perjured himself to get another job. Caught and escaping, he lied his way into the Catholic Church, writes pamphlets against the Catholics, then lies all over again about a Jesuit plot to assassinate King Charles II. He lies to Charles's face, who discovers and exposes his lies, and yet somehow he goes on. Many die as a consequence of Titus's words. He's ultimately denounced by the very judge that convicted men based on Titus's lies. And he's condemned, but when William of Orange takes over, he's made over with a pension. When folks are keen on the lie, liars flourish. I wonder why this is resonating with me in November 2024.
He was exiled too. He was thrown in the King's Bench prison originally, and then he was exiled back to France and died not long after, a few years after. St Ignatius of Loyola.
So that's the guy who started the Jesuits.
He's our founder, yes, of the Society of Jesus, of the Jesuits, yes.
And is that indicative of a dress that you have Because you're dressed as a priest.
Yeah,
You don't
we wear
do
the same.
habits or any.
We do have a gown. It's called yes, but we dress in the same way as diocesan, as secular priests. Yeah, yes, small chapel. There's a lovely echo in here. It's so it's very intimate. People can come in here to pray. We have confessions here. We have an hour of confessions every day.
So when you're doing confession in here, you're doing it out in the open, or is there?
Well, we close the door. You see, Our Lady of Montserrat was given to us by the citizens of Montserrat. Montserrat is in Catalonia, an ancient monastery, Benedictine monastery, and choir school there. When Ignatius, I could say so much about Saint Ignatius, but Ignatius was born in the Basque Country in Loyola, and he had a really bad injury, a cannonball, the Battle of Pamplona. He was in hospital for a long time, and that's when he started thinking about, what do I do with my life? He went on pilgrimage, and he ended up at Montserrat, which is the ancient shrine, spent 3 days in prayer there, and he laid down his sword in front of Our Lady of Montserrat. And if you go there, then you can see it. But it's not the actual sword, because the Benedictines have a replica of the sword, whereas the actual sword is in the Church of the Sagrat Cor, which in Catalan, I believe, is the Sacred Heart in Barcelona.
That's all for today, but if you want to see more interesting sacred spaces in pretty places with amazing things inside presented by incredible people, like, share, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe, will you?